Welcome to FPB's Meet the Candidates. This Cable 10 series allows you, the voters, to get a closer look at our local candidates and talk about the important issues that we have going on here in our community. We've taken questions through social media, through email. We've talked to civic groups and gathered information from them about issues that are important. And that's why we're here today, is to talk with our candidates about their views on these subjects. This is all leading up to the general election on November 8th. And we want to encourage you to listen to this and get informed and then go vote on November 8th. Today's guest is Ken Carroll, and he is running as the Republican candidate for our county judge executive here in Franklin County. Welcome, Ken. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So we didn't get the chance to talk during the primary because you did not have an opponent, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Okay. So this is a good opportunity for you to introduce yourself here to our audience and tell them a little bit about yourself and why you've decided to run for county judge executive.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Sure.
So, lived here since 1972. I'm very blessed to have my children and grandchildren here, 6, 7, and 8. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, that's the why I'm running first a little bit, because that's the first question I've been asked by the State Journal and everybody else. It's for my kids and grandkids and their peers. Mm-hmm. You know, for too long, we've lost a lot of our youth and continue to lose a lot of our youth because they don't have the opportunities. They don't have the quality of life that they'd like to have, so they go elsewhere to find that. So, I bring 30 plus years of economic development experience, really closer to 38 when you count the time that I spent working for the state legislature, state government committees, as well as the Economic Development Committee, and helped research and develop the current economic development system in Kentucky called the Economic Development Partnership Act. It's been in existence for 30 years this year, served both Democrat and Republican governors, and is working very well. So I had the opportunity then to go to the Cabinet for Economic Development for almost 13 years to help implement the act and serving as part of the state's development team. So almost all my background, I've been in some type of economic development role, whether it be with the Cabinet for Economic Development, also the UK College of Engineering, Center for Manufacturing, did development work for them, Kentucky Association of Manufacturers. And then finally now I'm President CEO of Advanced Manufacturing Professionals, and our focus in life is to enhance the image of the manufacturing industry, which is Kentucky's #1 industry, as well as better connect pipelines to opportunities. Everybody's looking for talent, and, advanced manufacturing certainly is.
All right. Well, in the fall, you have an opponent. So what distinguishes you from your opponent?
Well, I think primarily my experiences. I say 30 plus years, and I mean that as an economic development practitioner. Yeah. In both the public and private sectors, trying to, when I was with the Cabinet for Economic Development, I'm selling the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Why you should be here and what we have to offer. My role there was talent development, sustainment, and Bluegrass State Skills Corporation, so I was part of the development team. And I think having that economic development experience seems to be the subject of the day, and primarily talent development, that I can bring a lot of solutions, and working with you and others to make sure that we have the opportunities I talked about earlier for our youth.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you the opportunity. I want to ask you to assess the performance of the current fiscal court. And if elected, would you keep it moving in the same direction, or would you change direction?
Well, I think there's always room for improvement. Yeah. And I will at least commend the fiscal court and the judge. It's a very tough job that they have. And of course, resources are short, so we're always trying to think about how we can spend the money, the taxpayers' money, more efficiently. That's something else I can bring in terms of when I was with the UK College of Engineering, I got my lean systems, or some would call continuous improvement, training and education as a champion and as well as a leader. And so I want to bring that to county government as well, and make sure that what we are doing, we can map out, make sure everything we're doing makes sense. It's the most efficient way to do business, most cost-effective way to do business. And effectively, what we're going to have to do as a community is be on a path of prosperity related to being pro-growth. I think if you look at some examples of late, the property on Duncan Road, for example, I know that's for some sort of a painful thought, but the owners, prior to the recent change in the zoning, were agricultural. I mean, in terms of the property was an agricultural designation, $3,000 to $4,000 in taxes. The court, including my opponent, changed his position, which is good, to vote for them to go,
Right.
for IG, industrial growth, or industrial general.
Yep.
Which means that they're now going to pay taxes just for the dirt, $500,000 to $600,000 a year. Now, when you take that in improvements as well as ad valorem on contents that would be there, ad valorem taxes, they could essentially be paying whomever buys that or develops that, just use that as an example, over $1 million a year in taxes to our community. 60% of that would go to the county school system.
Okay.
And some of it goes to county government, the sheriff's office, other taxing districts, that type of thing. But we're going to have to figure out a way to grow so we can have the opportunities we want, so we can operate county government, and so we can have the amenities, the natatorium, the enhancement of our park systems, and other things that we need here to be a successful community going forward.
We're going to get into some of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So since
Okay.
You brought up the Duncan Road issue.
Yep.
I know that, like you said, the developer of Duncan Road had been trying to get that zoning changed since early 2020.
Well, maybe even, I think they bought it in 19, but yes.
They bought it in 19,
Yep.
and since, early
That's
2020,
right.
they started
Yep.
to get the zoning change.
Yep.
And again, like you said, there was the planning commission approved it, and then the court denied it, then
Yeah.
the planning commission, and they didn't
Denied
approve
it.
denied it, and then, it was.
Yes.
So, my question is, what do you think that means about the process? I mean,
Well-
and then, did it seem unnecessarily difficult?
Well, I think for most people most people in this community understand politics, right? We're in the seat of not only county government, but state government.
Exactly.
And everybody fashions themselves to be a political handicapper. I mean, I think everybody has a little bit of that in them. And so, I'm glad that some would call that my opponent flip-flopped. He changed his position. He was against the zoning recommendation in June of 20, and voted against the change.
Yeah.
And then this time around, the planning and zoning went the other way and did not recommend it. And then the court
Right.
reversed position,
Right.
including my opponent, to vote for it.
Yeah.
And so, in my mind, that's a win for the community. It really is a win based on the numbers that I just gave you. We need
Sure.
more of that to be able to pay for the things we want to do.
Yeah. So would you consider that like more thorough or just unnecessarily difficult? And
I would say
my question would be, how do we avoid situations like that in the future to bring
it was
developers?
it's political expediency,
Yeah.
is what, in my opinion, is
Yeah.
political. But at the same time, it's the right thing for Frankfort and Franklin County.
Okay. I'm going to go back to some of my other questions.
Yeah.
I know that, when you're the county judge, you're going to get a lot of requests. We have a lot of things going on here in Franklin County, and people need money.
Right.
And they want support. And so when you start getting requests from, like the Humane Society and all the different nonprofits, and then all the different departments in county government, what will be your process in weighing those requests, and what do you consider your priorities to be?
Sure. Well, again, this goes back to my continuous improvement or lean systems training. Number one, I'm going to be a servant leader. Jesus Christ was a servant leader. I will be a servant leader to serve the people of this community. I want to treat people with respect, regardless of what their position in life is. I'm going to work with all the departments in county government. I'm going to work with the magistrates and better understand what their needs are per district and what their thoughts are for the community. I'm going to work with the private sector to understand what kind of things we can do to help them grow, because it really is the private sector, those that write the paychecks, that make us grow. It's not government. Government primary role is the health and safety and security of our residents. But at the same time, to have better taxes, more efficient operations, better services, these types of things. So what I would do is I've explained this to others, and just very briefly with you.
Sure.
It's called a current state. Where are we currently? You know, what is the current state of county government? What are our needs currently that we have, obligations that we have to meet? Where is it we'd like to be based on what the community would like to have, the magistrates who are the elected representatives by district and me as county judge, what kind of feedback we get from the public and private sector. Certain things I think we have to do that are about public safety and health and that type of thing to make sure that is the core responsibility of government. So where are we today? Where you want to be, that's the vision, and a plan to get there. And so through the budgetary process, that gives you an idea how you fund those priorities. And so the priorities will be this: economic development. And a lot of people say, well, what does that really mean? Well, it could be industrial development, manufacturing. A lot of people don't realize manufacturing is the number one driver in the economy in Kentucky. Reason being is that we have such a great location. We're a truck driver's day trip, 6 to 8 hours, pretty long day, but it's basically a day trip to deliver goods, finished goods to market, and also component parts here to build things. And so we need to maintain a good road system, which we're very lucky to be right on I-64 to be able to have those trucks transport both ways. So I think that needs to be part of the equation. We need more development land. Now, I will tell you, a lot of people get a little uptight about that because if it's green, they don't want to change it at all.
Yeah.
I live on South Elkhorn Creek, one of the most beautiful places, my little piece of heaven, my family's little piece of heaven. And I'm not going to do anything that's going to endanger the South Elkhorn, North Elkhorn, the Maine, the Kentucky River. Those are all beautiful resources and assets that we must retain as we move forward and use them not only for the recreational types of opportunities, but tourism, folks to come here and spend money here. At the same time, we do need some advanced manufacturing opportunities because two things. One, for every manufacturing job you creates 3 more. Arts, what we would call service support. Arts Electric is a good example of that. They do a lot of work for manufacturing, very good paying jobs, and we need more of those service support types of entities. In addition, when you have those great careers and great benefits, you create individuals and families who have disposable income, which is sort of hard to come by these days with inflation and everything. That will help in turn be able to do what they call infilling with a lot of the vacant stores. Because you have to have customers. That's the primary thing that they need, are customers to go in and stay in business. And so we need as many good paying careers, not jobs, but careers as possible. Manufacturing, engineering, energy, logistics, healthcare, IT. There's a lot of different ways we can go with that. At the same time, we need a strong downtown. We're very historic here, and of course the seat of government. We're not going to be able to rely upon government as we have in the past. So we're going to be forced into doing some things differently and being innovative. So that's my priority, is economic development, talent development, because that's the lifeblood. You have to have talent, which everywhere you turn, people are looking for talent, including manufacturing. Economic development, talent development, and then, of course, the recreation / sports tourism, and then historic properties that we can enhance here, because I think that creates tourism opportunities as well.
Okay.
Buffalo Trace would be one. I mean, that's industry and tourism.
That's right. Well, all of this is dependent upon the budget.
That's right.
And right now, the fiscal court has a budget of nearly $47 million, I believe. So what experience do you have with large budgets like that, and how do you feel equipped to handle millions of dollars in a budget?
Well, most of my experience with that would be in working with the Cabinet for Economic Development, whether it be on the strategic side to understand, as you were talking about, the kind of things that we need to do to better serve and create a strong economy. As well as with Bluegrass State Skills Corporation, we manage just on the grant side $10 million sort of by year. Not that we allocated $10 million, but any particular year we would have $10 million in grant funds for existing business and industry and new locations and expansions. That was on the grant side. On the other side, with its tax credits, another $2.5 million there. Many times we would have special projects along the way. It could be like Ford Motor Company. It could be, a large company down in the western part of the state. And so many millions of dollars in various fashions, including the addition of the budget that I had with my team, which was relatively small, but very impactful. So I know how to manage money. I've had experience in both the public and private sector with that, and as well as developing and generating revenue. I will say this, that one of the things that I don't agree with my opponent on, and he has a great business, he and his wife have done a really good job with their business. As I understand it, and I've heard him talk about this, he believes that government should operate as a business. I think government should operate business-like. And so somebody said, well, it sounds like the same thing. Well, it's really different if you think about it. In the private sector, you may be the sole owner. In my opponent's case, it's he and his wife. And so they have to come to some consensus on how they're going to, grow their business and that type of thing. If you're the sole owner, it's all on you, right?
Sure.
So with government, you have to build a consensus. I'm one of 7 votes. Each magistrate is one of 7 votes.
That's right.
I have to really understand sort of what their personalities are, what their desires are for their district, for the community, and find ways to collaborate. Everybody's got a brand. My personal brand is about collaboration. That's what I've always done. I know how to solve problems. I know how to work with people and work towards goals. And all I'm saying is that when I talk about, business-like means going back to what I started with and talking about efficiencies in government, is being able to bring efficiency, being able to map out all the processes of planning and zoning and other types of activities so we know it's clear, here's what we are to do. We communicate that to the public and to the business community and others so they understand what those processes are. They have a clear picture on how we're spending our revenue and we're doing it wisely. And oh, by the way, I think we'll find some opportunities to save some money here or to improve a service.
Yeah. Well, another thing that people are maybe concerned about here in Franklin County is our lack of a pool, indoor pool.
Yes.
Since the closure of the downtown YMCA, Frankfort has had limited YMCA services as well.
Right,
So if
that's
elected, how will you be involved to bring new pool facilities to our community?
Well, number one, I am for the natatorium. I have had some good conversations with Mark Kopp, Superintendent of Public Schools.
Can you explain what that is to people?
Natatorium is an indoor swimming facility.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so what Dr. Kopp or Superintendent Kopp is committed to, a couple things. One, I believe he and the school board bought the old YMCA facility. And there's maybe 2 or 3 acres behind that. And Dr. Kopp tells me that he's already got some designs actually, to build the natatorium there with some opportunity to have, audience, spectators for sporting events, which we need sports tourism here, and then a performing arts center.
Okay.
And those are the kind of things that we're going to have the quality of life in this community, to have things for our young folks to do, and for them, and when they get their education, to come back here and put their roots down and grow their families and something for their kids to do. And so what I want to do in addition to that, just to give you more of a broad view, we need a comprehensive recreation and sports tourism plan for the entire community.
Okay.
Not just the county, not just the school system, not just the city. And so I'm committed, and I know there's been some attempts at this, but
Well, that was my next question.
Well, there you go. There you go. I read your mind.
That's right. The County Parks Committee, which is a subcommittee of the fiscal court, is setting up a sports tourism commission in the county.
Yep.
And that commission will be tasked with finding revenue stream that will fund the construction of a multi-sports complex at Lakeview Park.
Yes.
So what are your expectations of that committee, and what would be an acceptable timeline for their work?
Yeah. Well,
and also, do you think the city government should be involved in that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's where I was going with my last comment. So, and I'm glad that these things, they tie together very nicely.
Sure.
So we need a comprehensive plan for the whole community.
Okay.
We have so many different resources in terms of the city, the county, the school system, primarily the public school system, to some extent the independent school system, but all of us working together with the public, with the business community to understand, all right, here's our assets. It sort of goes back to the planning I was talking. Okay, here's our current state on, recreation and sports tourism. The Sports Commission, I think, will play a big role in that in terms of trying to find ways to pay for things. But yes, Lakeview Park's part of that. I think the city resources are part of that. I think the Natatorium is part of that with the county school system. I also want to take a look at even sort of regional parks or area parks like at the covered bridge, Schweitzer Covered Bridge. There's got the creek there and a picnic area, but we need like some concrete picnic tables in place, make a place for families to go and recreate and do some of those kind of things as well. So that's sort of a microcosm. The macro of that would be things like Lakeview Park. Now, I will tell you that I'm concerned about some of the price tagging that I hear about, and I don't think anybody knows for sure. But I've heard everything from 50 million to 70 plus million for that one project.
I had heard 60 million.
Well,
Yeah.
You're in the range, right?
Right, yeah, it's in
so
there.
you got the average.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
And so, a couple things. One, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I will tell you right now, I'm not going to raise taxes. We'll not have to raise taxes if we have pro-growth and efficiency in government. That's my belief. That's
Okay.
why I'm running. But at the same time, Lakeview Park's price tag is I guess, outlandish in a way. Now, we need to also be looking at things like a civic center. I don't think the multi-use facility at Lakeview Park is considered a civic center. I think it's a different type of structure. Great idea, and places for people to play different sports activities inside, particularly during the winter or inclement weather, that type of thing. But at the same time, I think we need to take a broader view of the whole community, look at all the assets. Maybe instead of the multi-use facility to start with, I know it's going to be in phases, but I think some have even, maybe on the committee, a couple of the magistrates, I believe, at least one of them, my opponents, has given some second thought about adding or having the building at all because of the price tag. I'm not sure on that one yet, but in my mind, I think it would be more responsible to have a community-wide plan and know specifically what the community wants and apply that, because quite frankly, the plan that was brought forth and voted upon by the sports, the park project committee, and as well as the whole court, didn't include a pool.
Right.
And that was the number one thing everybody wanted. I went to they had a public hearing, I guess you'd call it a public meeting at Paul Sawyer Library, and I was there. And I want to tell you, there were more people there talking about we have to have a pool than any other thing, and yet it wasn't part of the plan. And so I've been supportive of that from day one. I mean, we don't have the why. We talked about K-State. K-State pool's down, and possibly, maybe there's a chance it could come back as an interim step if they can find some ways to, number one, price tag what it's going to cost to be able to cover that. But number two, I think we're going to have to give a broader view to what's going on. So in terms of the time frame, quite frankly, I think we would be farther down the road if we already had some answers on the pricing.
Right.
The why we don't, I'm not quite sure about that, but we don't.
Yeah.
We don't know. I'm hopeful if, say, that one project in the next year, that we can take it in phases and be able to do some of the things that could be done much quicker and not only add recreational opportunities such as, the lighting of the softball fields and the soccer fields and some of the turf issues, that kind of thing. Enhancement of the golf course and the driving range. I think those are all things that can be done fairly quickly and add some value, not only for recreation, but for sports tourism.
Well, we've been talking about the parks master plan.
Yeah.
And dealing specifically with those issues. But another thing that the county and the city are doing is the comprehensive plan altogether. So what is the purpose of that comprehensive plan? And again, is that on a good timeline? Has it? I know it's been a while since it had been
Yes.
updated, and people are saying that that's probably put us behind on
Yeah.
some things we should be doing. So, what are your
Well,
views on that?
yes, thank you so much for asking that question. So the current plan, which I understood is more of an update, the current comprehensive plan, took like upwards of 5 years
Yeah.
to arrive at that. I've heard the timeline on the new plan, which was just launched, the effort was just launched.
Sure.
And I went to both of those meetings at
Okay.
Bondurant and Franklin County, is more like a 2 to 5 year timeline.
Okay.
So with that said, my biggest concern is there are some elements in the community that are non-growth. Some would even say degrowth. And that's very concerning to me. I think if that attitude, that position prevails, and my opponent continues to advocate for that he's going to have to raise taxes. He'll have to raise taxes to pay for the operation of county government, and if there's going to be any enhancement to Lakeview Park, it's going to take higher taxes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have
So,
to
is
have
that something
pro-growth.
you would be willing to do?
I'm not going to raise taxes.
Okay.
I'll say it
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
I don't think we have to.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Through efficiency in government,
Uh-huh.
talking about, continuous improvement, lean systems, and then growth. You remember the example I used on Duncan Road? 3 to 4,000
Mm-hmm. Right.
for ag designation, 5 to 600,000
Yeah.
just on the dirt
Yeah.
for industrial general.
So we've talked about pro-growth. So what
Mm-hmm.
do you think it means to be a pro-growth candidate?
Well, number one, it doesn't mean, as some have accused me of, wanting to pave over the entire county.
Yeah.
I mean, which is sort of ludicrous, but still, I'm not for mega growth. I'm not for paving over the county.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just sort of an extreme thought. But in my mind, and I do have what I call smart growth. And it's just my definition of smart growth.
Well, there's lots of definitions for smart
Exactly.
growth.
So
what's
nobody
yours?
owns smart
Yeah.
growth. It's you may define it
Sure.
differently than I mean, you can go to kencarrollcje.com and see all my bullets there. But effectively, we need, and it's a balanced approach, we need 500 to 700 acres of industrial general property somewhere in probably the western half of the county to be able to use that as a stepping stone for the next 15 to 20 years to generate enough revenue through our current tax base, through growth, to be able to pay for the operation of government, to be able to pay for all the enhancements and the amenities that we want. Just like on the Natatorium and the Performing Arts Center, that's a $25 million project right there.
Yeah.
And so the school system's committed, Dr. Kopp, $10 million. I think the county, a couple million. And quite frankly, I think once we become more of a business-friendly community, and the business community sees that they're going to be more willing to invest in our community, to help support the Natatorium and the Performing Arts Center, to help support Lakeview Park and some of those opportunities, to help support things like a Humane Society type of project, and sort of everything small, medium, and large, everything from maybe festivals to actual infrastructure types of project that includes a building. The Humane Society is one example of that. And so we're going to have enough growth to be able to do that, but yet not so much that it changes the total character of our community. We have a beautiful community here, a lot of green space, more than really people give us credit for.
Yeah.
In terms of here. The waterways, it's just beautiful, and we're not going to do anything that's going to harm any of that.
So what do you think is more important in Franklin County right now? Building new homes and commercial space, or rehabbing and expanding and better utilizing our existing homes and storefronts?
So are you talking about in spacing or
Infill.
Infill?
Yeah.
There's different
People have
phrases,
different terms for that, too.
Exactly.
So I was just trying to lay it out
Infill's probably the most common
Yeah.
term. And with that, what I'm hearing in terms of infill is more the retail spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I think I mentioned this earlier, but for us to have opportunities to fill those spaces, we need disposable income.
Yeah.
Which means if we have, like in the county, Industrial General, the spinoff from that is going to help the whole community. You're going to have more people with more disposable income willing to go into town and spend their money, go to restaurants and that type of thing. Now, with existing homes, I think that's awesome to be able to fix those up and sell them. There's maybe even some properties that should be considered because they're in such dilapidated states that may need to be torn down and start over. Some have indicated that we have a lot of infilling in our industrial parks, and it's simply not true. Now, with that said, you might see an empty space. There may be a building. Most of the structures are used either for manufacturing or some type of service support, warehousing, logistics, that type of thing. And if it's not being used today, it is owned typically by one of those adjoining, it's part of their footprint to allow them to grow. So there is essentially no infilling to be done in the industrial parks that's of any significance. In terms of homes, I really believe that we're going to have to take a look at some of the things that, say, Scott County and maybe even Shelby County have done or are doing, where in order to draw a talent pool, build a talent pool, we have to have with that, maybe as part of the package, an opportunity for people to have affordable housing.
Right.
I think that needs to be part of the approach going forward.
Okay. Well, I can't let you get out of here without talking about Buffalo Trace real quick.
All right.
As everyone knows, talk of the town, Buffalo Trace has proposed expanding into the Peaks Mill area.
Yes.
And the way now that they're looking at expanding, being allowed to do that is through the text amendment. So I guess I'm looking at two different questions here.
Yeah.
Do you support the expansion of Buffalo Trace into Peaks Mill? And then separately, do you support doing that by text amendment?
Well, two things. Number one, I've been for the Buffalo Trace project since day one. They've been in business here for 200 years, a little over 200 years, I think. It brings tremendous resources, what they're already doing in terms of the distillery and the current warehouses. And of course, they have some other warehouses that are being built up on the hill there from the distillery. I know there's a lot of concern in terms of the other barrel houses in what they call the Peaks Mill area. It's my understanding that Buffalo Trace had chosen that area first because of access to gas lines, I just learned this recently, gas lines, natural gas lines, that help them power a system where they can have fire control, to help pump water for fire control, because they are very committed to making sure that if there is any spillage, they have the containing systems to be able to capture, I think it's 1.5 times, or whatever that amount is.
Yeah.
And needing the natural gas to operate that pumping system for fire control is another. I do believe that there could be and may be other areas of the county that might be candidates for that. I just want to keep them in the community. It's a $7.8 million project, those barrel houses alone. That's not counting what's already here.
Right.
That project, is at $7.8 million. Again, 60%, a little over 60%, goes to the public school system. That helps us do things like the natatorium, like the Performing Arts Center, like, enhancement of a lot of opportunities.
Sure.
Better pay for teachers. I know Dr. Kopp's committed to that. Teachers are the most important people in our lives as far as I'm concerned, and they don't get paid enough.
Right.
And so we need to do everything possible to support public education, and I think that's one way to do it. The text amendment, again, is another way, in addition to the zone change. I'm not a lawyer and I'm no expert at, that type of law, but it would appear to me that the text amendment makes more sense because a lot of communities have already been there and are doing that, and they're doing it quite successfully. Nelson County, I believe, Woodford County, and maybe some others, as I've heard, because the Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustment still has control on how that's to be set up. The conditions, the conditional use permits, once it's approved as a text amendment, they still have to meet certain conditional uses. So the Peaks Mill area project, 400 acres, maybe more, it's my understanding they're actually going to use 30 to 40 acres, which would be offset from the road. There's going to be enhancements to the wetlands areas. enhancements to the arboretum to have a beautiful setting there. And there is going to be some truck traffic, but that's prime real estate. If it's not used by Buffalo Trace, you're probably going to see a large subdivision go in there and have a lot more traffic in the area with those homes being there than you would ever have with the truck traffic.
Okay.
On the issue of the mold or fungus, some call it, I've never seen a study where it said it's made anybody sick or damaged anything. Now, yes, it does create, some issues with your home or whatever, but every community that has in there a distillery and barrel houses lives with that because it's part of our tradition. Bourbon was the first product ever manufactured in Kentucky. I studied that and wrote an article for my president when I was with the Kentucky Association of Manufacturers. First product, interestingly enough, in the eastern Kentucky, and you can look back in history, a lot of that, the distilleries were operated by ministers, of all things, which seems a little odd. But at that time, it was done for barter. There wasn't any money, so they used it for barter in lieu of cash. And it was used for medicinal purposes. Now, I guarantee you somebody had a recreational opportunity every now and then, but nevertheless, I am for Buffalo Trace, and I want it to happen here, yes.
Okay. Well, our time is up. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you speak directly to our viewers and tell them why they need to vote for you on November 8th.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And
Sure.
again, thank you so much for this opportunity to be with you today. I'm really excited about working with all of you to make sure that we have the community that we all need and have to have for our youth to be able to stay here when they become young adults and get their education, whatever it may be, technical education or a standard type of college degree. We want them to come back to Frankfort and Franklin County and be able for their folks and their people to put their roots down here. I'm very blessed to have mine here. I have two sons, Jason, who's 34, and Chris, who's 37, and three grandkids, Liam, Lindley, and Evie. Beautiful kids. They're all here. I want every family to have that opportunity. And so for that to happen, we have to have growth. We have to have growth in lieu of higher taxes, but we also have to have growth so we have the career opportunities needed to be able to support things like a better quality of life, the natatorium, for example, the Performing Arts Center, the enhancement of all the parks here, including Lakeview Park, the security we need to be able to make sure we continue to be and can become even a safer community than we already are. Lots of opportunities here, but I certainly cannot do this by myself. I need those of you that believe as I do that we can improve things here and have a better quality of life for all of us. I seek your vote on November 8th. Again, Ken Carroll for Franklin County Judge Executive, and again, thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming, stopping by here today and talking with us, and I know that our viewers appreciate it too.
Thank you.
And I appreciate our viewers for watching because it's so important to get informed before you go vote on November 8th. And when you get done voting, you go home and turn it on Channel 10 and watch our live election returns that we'll have coming directly from the county clerk's office. It's election season, so that means it's time to get informed, and that's why we're doing this. And just remember that your vote is your voice, so use it. Thanks.